We have talked about the differences between qualitative and quantitative data in a previous slide. Now we're going to use a little bit more vocabulary to define data. So data also comes from two sources. It can be from a direct source, and if it's a direct source, it means you are collecting new data specifically for that study. And you can collect it by surveys or interviews or experiments or trials. And another source for data is an indirect source, and this is where you use data that's already existing. So old data, something that's already been collected, and you analyze it. So this is data that is not originally collected for the purpose of the study. And it's collected as part of the day-to-day processes of an organization. So the best way to think about this is maybe by example. So records of births are collected by the province. Same thing with deaths. All births and deaths are monitored on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and you could analyze those births and deaths for different data or different reasons and different studies, and that would be called an indirect source. Another place is school enrollments would be an example. They're collected whether or not you're going to study them or not. School enrollments are data is collected. Hospital admissions, these are just a couple of examples of data that's collected on a day-to-day basis. And those are all indirect sources. So we're going to be taking a look at statistics in the news, and we want you to be able to read an article or read a headline and figure out what the data source is. Is it direct or indirect? Identify the population and figure out if a sample is used. So in this one, it talks about the statistics and how it shows that there's 2,700 empty homes in Saanich. So I want you to pause the video and read the first two paragraphs of the article to see if you can pick out the data source and the population and whether a sample is used. Good, welcome back. Now let's take a look. Most of the information that we need is in the second paragraph. So first the numbers according to Stats Canada. So Statistics Canada, that would be the data source. And Stats Canada collects data every 7 years on Census Day. And so the entire population of Canada is surveyed. So that's called the entire population is surveyed, and it is not a sample, it's a census. And actually, if you don't answer, if you get if you have to answer a census questionnaire, you actually have to do that by law. If you don't answer, then they will fine you, and they will come hound you on at your door to make sure that you fill it out. Now, is it direct or indirect? It is indirect because the Stats Canada conducts the surveys, even if for lots of different purposes. It's collected every 7 years and not necessarily just for this study. So that's why it's called indirect. So here we're going to take a look at the second example. 45% of BC businesses report difficulty finding workers, survey says. So pause the video and read through the 4 sentences and see if you can answer describe the characteristics of the survey. Welcome back. So what is the data source? The data source is a survey, and is it direct or indirect? It is a direct survey because it is a new survey that was done just for this purpose. So it's a new survey, new data that was collected. And the population, if you look at the title, it talks about BC businesses, so the population would be all BC businesses. Now the sample, they didn't talk to absolutely every BC business. They did a survey and they only asked 1,208 of them. So it was 1,208 entrepreneurs. So that is the sample.